Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our latest Distinctive Discussion webinar with myself. I'm Ben Lowndes, and journalist and editor of various titles in the Southwest, Rob Buckland. Thank you firstly for joining us for what I hope will be a useful session. It's good to see some familiar names on the call, and welcome also to sort of new faces who are joining us this morning. Really pleased to have Rob join us to share his insights of working in journalism in our region for Rob, more than 30 years, isn't it? And, in roles...
I don't want to say how many years. It's so close to, in this region, 30 odd years, in total. I don't want to say.
Yeah, and
I was a mere kid when I started.
Yeah, those roles include business editor of the Western Daily Press, and then editor of his own sort of successful and well-respected titles covering areas around Bristol, Bath and Swindon. I've worked with Rob on stories for my clients and for my own business at Distinctive over the years. I know he's collaborative, he's curious, he's thorough. You know, his stories will often include sort of details that he's picked up from from other sources, and we'll just sort of discuss that sort of on the call today. He's interested in genuine stories that business has to tell, and as we'll discuss today as well, he's not alone in receiving an awful lot of pitches from businesses that never see the light of day. And our aim this morning is to share some tips from somebody who knows business and the business of journalism exceptionally well. So great to have you with us today, Rob.
Thank you. That was quite some intro.
please tell us a bit about yourself and the titles that you work for.
Okay, right. At the moment, I run, edit, own Bristol Business News, Bath Business News, and Swindon Business News. They're online business publications. Going back further, you're right, I was business editor of the Western Daily Press. Well, I came to Bristol to work on the Western Daily Press as a business reporter, and then became business editor sometime after that, and built up the business coverage till I'd like to say it was quite well respected. It was kind of the go-to. We used to do a supplement on Wednesday, which became, without blowing my own trumpet, kind of the go-to place for business news across the west of England. And that was quite a patch. I mean, it went from Tewkesbury, Hereford, around almost the West Midlands, down to the South Coast, Dorset, Weymouth, down to Taunton. You know, we kind of expanded it over to Swindon. So it was a fair old chunk. And we did about everything, but a lot about the aerospace industry, a lot about creative sector, a lot about technology, all the stuff that makes the west of England interesting. Prior to that, I've been a health correspondent, I've been a general reporter, I was a cub reporter, obviously in my first paper. I've worked in PR, did 2 years, and I've got the scars to prove it, in a public relations agency in Bristol, which no longer exists, not because of me. That was fascinating, and I think that gives me a bit of an insight into an appreciation of the way you guys in PR work in communications, because not many journalists do, and it's loads of journalists have gone into PR and not settled, found it difficult for lots of reasons. It's a totally different way of working.
Well, I worked in newspapers before I went into PR and sort of made the cross, and there's crossover for sure, but there are sort of differes.
Which we've talked about before. And every time I talk to anyone in PR, and it's
so good to have you with us anyway.
Sorry to interrupt. It's not a kind of journalist PR on opposite sides. It's not like a boxing match where journalists in one corner and the PR people in the other corner, and they come out and slug it out. And that's not the way I operate. Hopefully, some of my best friends are PR people. Let's put it that way.
Very good, very good. I'm sure those of you on the call, I'm sure you'll know how these sessions work, so I'll keep the housekeeping bit very short. We'll start with a discussion, and we'd like to follow that or include some questions from yourselves too, which we can do using the questions tab. And you will, if your machine is set out in a similar way to mine, you will hopefully see that on the bottom panel towards the right. So please get them in early to us. We'll answer as many as we can. And before we get into the discussion, we'll start with a quick poll just to get a sense from you about sort of your work with the media, or how you sort of see media relations in the overall marketing mix. So here is the poll coming up now, hopefully. So if you click on the poll tab, you'll see the question here: is good media coverage important for you or your business? So you've got another number of options there.
Good. I should have said I'm in a place called the Engine Shed, which is a tech hub in Bristol, and I do some mentoring here for businesses, which is quite interesting because then they're right at the start. These are startups.
Yeah.
They're often people with absolutely no experience of the media whatsoever. Sometimes they're geeky people from the university who've got great ideas, want to change the world, and it's really enjoyable because I talk to them about the way the media can help them. If they get the message right to journalists like me or to journalists in whatever field they're in, a lot of them are techie people and they just want to talk about the technology. And so I have to kind of rein them in and say it's not necessarily about the technology; it's about the overall what your business will be doing or what the technology can be used for. Maybe we'll come back to.
I'll come on to tech language as part of this actually, but because I do think it's worth reflecting on. People are working in different sectors, but I think they all have a lexicon of their own. So interesting results of this poll, and perhaps sort of self-evident. Otherwise, people wouldn't be on the call really. But 7 people have said yes, it's very important. One person has said quite important. It's good to know that this is a serious thing for you.
Essentially, sound better than the bare numbers.
Yeah. We'll move into the questions now, if that's all right. So, Rob, you've spoken briefly about the titles you represent. Can you tell us about the sort of stories you're covering, sort of on those titles, and give us an idea of the range of things that you will cover?
Okay, yeah, it's business, but it's business in its widest sense. As mentioned, kind of do a lot with the technology. And Bristol, if we go through them individually, I guess Bristol is a great tech centre, but it's also a great cultural centre. There's the creative industries in Bristol really important, so I often do stuff around, what TV, film are doing, and that kind of rubs up against technology as well, because a lot of the time the people working in technology are also working in things like animation. It's the back office stuff. Sustainability, the whole sustainability thing is important, but then that rubs up against technology because you've got technology for good, which is becoming a really important thing. People using technology not for technology's sake, but to improve, society or to tackle climate change, that kind of thing. That's interesting. The important sectors, obviously, aerospace, as previously mentioned, advanced engineering, financial services. I keep an eye across all those, try to keep up to date what's going on in them. But everything really. I mean, I'm interested in receiving information about interesting businesses, and that my readers will find interesting. That can be various things. It can be expanding, I like to write a story. I mean, one thing people say journalists are only interested in bad news, which is absolutely not the case, unless maybe you want the Daily Mail or something. But I'm interested in good news. I'm interested. I don't want to be writing about companies going out of business. I have to if they're going out of business and they're a well-known company, obviously. But I'd much rather write about businesses that are taking on extra people, producing new products, getting funding. That's quite. Expanding, going and representing the region. Lots of successful businesses is great for the region.
Yeah.
To look at Bath news. Bath is a great place for tourism. Hospitality sector. Okay, it's been through a few problems, but Bath has got a great tech scene as well. Not as high profile as Bristol, and Swindon as well. And Swindon's coming up in technology.
Yeah. So different types of stories across Bristol, Bath, and Swindon, and opportunities for businesses to sort of tell stories about their success.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, successful businesses is what I like to write about. I think that's great for all of us. We can all share in the success, and that kind of feeds on itself. Successful businesses generate other successful business, and then you start getting spin out companies, etc., etc. Sometimes people say to me, "What's the best story that you could possibly have?" And I often say it's someone who's worked for a big company, Dyson or something, and then gone on and started up their own company, and then go and rival Dyson. One of my favorite ones is publishing in Bath. You know, the guy started that up. He used to work on a local newspaper. This is, 30 odd years ago. He decided he was a junior reporter on a local paper in Somerset, decided to start up his own magazine. And now he's a multimillionaire living in California.
Yeah.
And started TED Talks as well. So, that's
no, brilliant. I was hearing about him the other day, actually. So good opportunities. So you told me recently, and this is the thing that motivated me to set this webinar up, actually, because I mean it's something that I've heard before, certainly, but it may not be something that others are aware of. You told me recently that you received more than 100 press releases a day, which feels like a lot of effort. It feels like a lot of effort for a lot of stuff that doesn't get used because you're only using a sample of them, and I'd be interested to know how many you would use. But what are you looking for in those releases? What the ones that you do use? I mean, interested to know how many do get used, but what are you looking for in those releases and contact from teams?
Okay. To be blunt, I'm looking for the facts. The facts of the story. I'm not really interested in the way it's presented, the way it's written. Not interested in the use of language, the use of English. It's kind of what's happened. Just tell me the facts. It's like bumping into someone in on the bus or in the pub or something, and then me saying to them, "What does your business do?" And they will rattle off the facts, what their business does. We're a technology company, employ 100 people. We've just started in Germany. We've opened an office, blah, blah, blah. They used to work for other companies. Yet when they write a press release, they get themselves all twisted up, and suddenly it's kind of, we've got to say this, we've got to say that. Just stick to the bare facts a lot of the time. And put it in context. This is another thing that I find lacking a lot. It seems to be more these days. I don't know why, but kind of why are you sending me this press release is kind of, is it the biggest order you've ever had? If you've got an order for £100 million, is that the biggest? How long has the company been going for? A lot of the kind of the basics are missing from press releases, I find. Okay, some press releases you have, I always tell people to do this, put a kind of, notes to editors at the bottom, which is really, really important. And I can't stress that enough. Telling me, basically, I've never heard of most of the companies that send me a press release. It's the same for all journalists. Well, it's probably more for other journalists. I've been around it for quite a long time, so I know a lot of the companies. But I will receive, as you said, up to 100 press releases a day from companies I've never heard of. First thing I do is look at them and say, is this a relevant story? And for me, i.e., is it from Bristol, Bath or Swindon or, the west of England? I get press releases from Manchester, Birmingham. My publication is called Bristol Business News. My email address has got Bristol Business News on it, and they send me a press release about Manchester. A Manchester company. Hi Rob, we thought you'd be interested in this story about our client who's based in Macclesfield or somewhere, and they've just taken on 2 more people. Well, no, I'm not going to be interested. Yes, you've just wasted your time sending me this email, and you probably sent it to all the other business editors in the country. I don't know. So that's the kind of starting point. It's got to be relevant. And it's got to be factual. And it's got to be put in context. Like, explain to me who your company is, and by all means, put a covering, a few paragraphs at the top. We represent XYZ Limited. They're based in Portishead, or they're based in Chippenham or something. And we've just taken them on. They're in the oil and gas business. They're doing really well. We thought here's a press release about them. They're taking on, they've just broken into a new market, or they've launched a new product, or they're putting a new managing director. And, if you need any more information, here's my number. I got a press release the other day from someone, I won't name the PR agency, who sent me the press release on Friday and then went on holiday. I didn't think that happened.
Well,
I should have I back straight away saying, can you give me some more information about this? I can't use this story because I need more information. A week later, they got back to me and said, sorry, I was on holiday.
That's what's known as a hit and run. That's what's known as a hit and run email, and it's not very good at all. I mean, the other thing you sort of pointed out there, where you are bombing an announcement out to everyone on your list, irrespective, is something termed as a spaghetti strategy. Let's just throw this spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
How much of it sticks?
It's insulting, it's kind of
it doesn't deserve it. Yeah,
and it's a waste of their time. And kind of PR agencies can build up bad. Maybe we'll talk about this later on. PR agencies can build up bad reputation with journalists by wasting journalists' time. One of the things and I used to do quite a bit of media training. I still do a bit of media training. It's like, don't waste the journalist's time. You know, if I'm getting 100 press releases, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes reading each press release, am I? I never get anything done. I'm going to open the press release. Well, hopefully I'm going to see from the subject what's in the subject line. A lot of time it's press release. But if it says Bristol business, you know, Bristol business wins multi-million-pound order, I'm going to open it. And as I said, and if it's a business I've never heard of, I'm going to read the press release. Then I usually go on the website of the company and check them out and see what else they've been doing. And I find loads more interesting stuff on their website than is in the press release. And I need to know, you know, also kind of the validation, which is another thing I talk about when I do some mentoring here, and I've done about in media training as well. Journalists want to know this is a genuine story. You know, this is a genuine business. We have been scammed in the past, you know. And I'm not saying all PR people do this, having been one myself, but kind of you tend to kind of overwrite stuff sometimes. PR people as if it's the most important, you know, best thing since sliced bread. Is explain why, if it is world beating, you know, explain why it's world beating. Don't just put world beating. You know, award winning. Everybody is award winning. Well, you know, I'm an award winning journalist because I won an award. But you know, if someone says to me, I'm an award winning journalist, say, yeah, I won it, you know, 20 years ago for best West of England business journalist or something. But so don't just put award winning. Say what awards you've won in the past. In the notes to editors, if you won a Queen's Award for business, you know, it validates that.
Absolutely. I will go on to Rosette. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Rosette. But she's posted a couple of questions, and I mean I'll answer one of them myself actually. But it sort of touches. I'll ask it now because it touches on the point that you're making. So thanks for your question. Do you prefer to have finished copy, stroke pictures, or is it important for you to make your own story? And I think you know. You have mentioned that you sort of need the facts. I mean, you know, you've also mentioned about not wasting time. But yeah, interested in your thoughts, sort of very briefly about that. You know, in response to that question.
Yeah, the facts are the most important thing. I think I've said this before, Ben, but the kind of press release is a great introduction, but a great way of getting your client or your company to my attention. But it's not necessarily the be all and end all. It's not necessarily a story I want a lot of the time. You know, sometimes it is. A lot of time it is, but quite a lot of the time it isn't. I will be looking for something else. So it could be the starting point of a story, or it could go into another story about something else. And if you know, I get. It's quite a good example. I get press releases. I get inundated press releases from the law firms in Bristol, which is fine because I do a lot with the law firms. A lot of my readers, subscribers are lawyers, and so I would get a press release from ABC law firm who say we're delighted we've won an award at the Legal 500 award ceremony or something like that, and then I get a press release following day from another company. You know, XYZ legal firm who said we're delighted we've won this award. Well, it's the same award, so I'm not going to do two separate stories. I'm going to do one story.
No.
And then what I do when I get it, I then go on the website of the awards and see who else has won. You know, and sometimes you know the story is. I got a press release I think last year from an accountancy firm who said we're delighted we won this award, and something at the back of my mind said I'm sure I wrote the same story last year. So I went back and checked, and they'd won it the year before, but they forgot. But they didn't put that in the press release. They just, it's you know, if you win an award 2 years running, it's a lot better story than just winning it once.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Kind of in a roundabout way, I'm saying put things in context as well. You know, kind of if you won an award 5 years in a row, it's a much better story than winning it once.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rosette, photos. Did someone mention photos as well? If you get sent photos.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah, but just, I mean, I'm a website, so I just use small photos. I don't need big, high-resolution images. If you're going to send images, send them as a zip or something, zip file. Don't clog up people's inboxes, and that happens to me quite a lot. Like on Friday afternoon, my inbox gets clogged up with people saying, "We've won an award. Here's 10 photos of us winning an award."
Just before they've gone off on holiday.
Just before they've gone off on holiday, yeah. So, send a photo. Don't say, if you need photos, come back to us. Don't put any obstacles in the way. Maybe I should express that. Don't put any obstacles in the way of your story getting to, or your press release getting used by the journalist. That includes putting all the facts in, but also attaching a photo of the person quoted in the story with a caption. Can I stress that enough? The number of press releases I get with a photo of 3 people and not saying who's in the story. So what I have to do then, I go on their LinkedIn pages to find out who they are, and then make sure I'm getting the caption right. I don't want my readers to say, "Oh, Rob Buckland got that wrong."
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
Pride. I don't want people to think I never blame me. He doesn't know the difference between the managing director of this law firm and the senior partner law firm because he got the wrong way around in the caption. Well, that's why journalists don't like some PR people.
Yeah. Rosette has asked another question, which I'll
Good. I like this.
I'll sort of kick this off actually. So because I think it's sort of a fairly straightforward one to answer, but very valid. So thanks for that. Do press releases have to be sent to you through a PR company? You represent a sort of small business and don't have a PR agent. Certainly not, really. I think the key, I think the where people like us can help is, because it's part of what we do, is sort of facilitating that contact and helping you to sort of tell the story and land the coverage. But who it comes from isn't really a sort of isn't really a factor. I mean, actually,
it doesn't. I don't care who it comes from, basically. As long as it's factually correct in context with the someone's contact details on a photo in the right whatever. You don't need a PR agency to do that. What you need a PR agency for is if you're doing campaigns or you need you need advice, whatever, in getting to certain journalists. You can build journalists can build up rapport with good PR people, and that helps. That facilitates it. But I don't necessarily say I've never said I'm not going to use that story because it hasn't come from a PR person.
Okay, thank you.
It can just be kind of what sometimes. Sorry to drop in. Sometimes I've bumped to people. They say, "Can I tell you about my business?" And I say, "Yeah, tell me about it," or just drop me, pull me to a website and drop me a couple of bullet points on what you're doing. Yeah. That can be a story, and I'll come back to you if I think it's interesting. So where PR really, really helps is, as I said, a lot of time I don't know these companies, so a PR person can say, we've just taken on a new client, we think they're really interesting. If you've got time, come and meet the managing director or something, and we can come. If I've got time, I will do that. And maybe we can come on to talk about the relationship you can build up with journalists because it's worth its weight in gold. It's free publicity, This is what people don't realise, If you're not paying for a PR agency, it's free publicity. If you are paying for a PR agency, it can be extremely, cost benefit of it. What money well spent. If you're paying for a bad PR agency is sending me with the wrong press release, it's money not well spent.
Thank you. We've covered a bit of ground. We've covered a bit of ground in those first two questions. I will sort of invite you to just sort of expand on, without going into detail about specifics. Interested to sort of hear your views on the sort of releases that aren't making the cut. And perhaps my question would be, can you tell us about the things you're not looking for in news announcements?
I'm not looking for PR spin, PR hype. I'm looking for information, basically looking for facts. I write about business. Business is very factual, if you're writing about a business, it's all about the facts. And I do get a lot of press releases from people like hospitality industry, restaurants, bars, hotels, and they just use flowery language, to talk about food, talk about the decor, that kind of stuff. Well, that's all very good, but I get press releases from hotels done to even say how many bedrooms they've got. If I said to you, what's the biggest measure? How do you measure a hotel? It would be size of bedrooms, wouldn't it? So I get press releases all the time from hotels saying we're delighted we're opening a new hotel in Bath. We've got some interior designer coming. It's going to be William Morris wallpaper. It's going to be locally sourced food. Blah blah blah. And you got no idea how many covers the restaurant has got. You no idea how big the hotel is in terms of bedrooms. These kind of facts. So what do? Do I write about it? Do I waste my time going back to this PR agency and telling them how to do their job? Basically, give me some facts. Otherwise, and what a lot of people in PR don't realise is if I get 100 press releases a day, I'm not going to use 100 press releases. Okay, a lot of those aren't going to make the cut anyway because they're badly targeted. But if I need one more story to complete what I'm doing on a Friday when I send the e-bulletin out, and I've got 2 stories that both I think are both good, but I've only got 10 minutes to write the story. Basically, I'm going to go for the one with all the facts in. I'm not going to go use the one that's got facts missing.
Yeah.
It's bad in such a way that it takes me a lot of time to do it. So sometimes stories don't make the cut because of press releases don't make the cut into becoming stories because they don't contain all the information I want.
Yeah.
Something simple as that. When I worked on newspapers, often all newspapers need good photos, and we'd be looking around for a good photo story for the front page of the business supplement, because we didn't just want a man in suit. Most business pictures are a man in a suit, a bit like me. But so a good product being launched by someone would have a decent photo would automatically get on the front page of the business supplement. You know? So people wouldn't even send a photo in of the product, or they send a really bad. We can talk about photos and the power of photos a bit if you want, but they send in a really bad photo of their product with nobody in it, so no idea how big this thing was. They send in a picture of a cup, or they have a picture of someone drinking the cup, or the cups on the production line, 1 million cups going on a big production line.
Thank you.
Make a decent photo with someone looking at it. But they send a picture of the managing director in a suit with his arms folded.
Thank you. So
what we're talking about photos, one thing, please send photos of the people quoted in the press release. So if you're quoting, so if you're taking on, this sounds pretty obvious, but if you're taking on a new member of staff, send a photo of them, a decent photo. And if you're going to be doing that a lot, hire a professional photographer, a press photographer to come in and take headshots of everybody in the company that's likely to be featured in a press release, and pay them, hire them for half a day.
So hopefully that's useful to those who asked that question. So we've got another couple of questions coming in. I'm going to move on to a question about sort of a big news, something that's been a big news story in the calendar, and how to sort of respond to that or work around it. But we'll pick off a couple of these questions before doing it, because I think they're sort of touching on things that we've already discovered. So Meg Clifford, hello Meg, thank you. So I think this question is basically, what is news? What do you determine to be a newsworthy story from your perspective? Is it big business news such as awards, new partner hires, or do you see successful events, new CSR work as newsworthy? I would say all of those are, but when we're thinking about news for our clients, and there is a lot of research that goes into this, actually, what makes a good news story. And there's the facts that Rob has talked about, but there is also things like, it's worth thinking about, what is it that makes this stand out, and relevance to your audience is clearly sort of critical, but, is this the first? Is it the most innovative? Is it the biggest? How much does it cost? Is it something that will make you say, wow? What's the human impact of those stories? All of those things can help, just to help to sort of elevate it a little bit. So, and also, it's not just you talking about yourself. It's not just how can you bring other voices into that? There is some work that we have done about sort of creating decent stories, which we will share at the end of this call, which sort of may help Meg with some of the questions you're asking. But Rob, is there anything that you would add to that?
I think you covered everything there.
Right.
Relevance. Sometimes I get press releases and that's kind of interesting, but I haven't got space to use it. As a journalist, have got a finite amount of space, finite amount of time. Some go on the kind of interesting but not great press releases. Sometimes the news agenda takes over. We can
absolutely.
We're going to come and talk about the news agenda as well. Sometimes the news, a major thing happens in the news agenda, and a lot of stories disappear or don't get used, or
things move fast.
And they move faster. We're on a 24-hour news cycle. Kind of what I do is different, obviously, because mine is more of a kind of roundup a lot of time of what's been going on in Bristol. But then again, a big story breaks in business in Bristol, I will cover it. And sometimes that means not covering other stuff, which, maybe you can go back to. But if it's... So I think it's important that people working in PR communications or needing to kind of fill in those kind of roles understand the news agenda, and why certain stories. I get PR people talking to me all the time. Why didn't you use our story?
Right.
Some of them have taken it personally over the years. And it's kind of, well, it landed at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Spend it on Friday afternoon and go on holiday. Kind of,
Yeah.
And if it's targeting certain, if you want your press release or you want your story to be used in certain publications, to try and find out a bit more about how they want their stories, when they want their stories.
Yeah.
A lot of business magazines come out every 2 months.
Yeah.
They don't want the story. If they come out on the last Friday of the month, they don't want your story arriving on the last Thursday of the month. So I understand a bit more, and very few people do that actually, which is kind of a shame. I think that should happen more.
Well, these are things that decent PR people can help with, certainly, because it's their business to know it. It's certainly something that we're mindful of. Anne-Marie Rogers, who I think works for Avon Pension Fund. She is representing an organisation with £5.4 billion worth of investments, which and they've recently allocated 150 million of that to local investments, including local solar farms. So there's a big sort of environmental sort of consideration there. So sounds brilliant from what you're telling me. The question is this both a business and local news story, or more business focused? It could certainly be both. I suppose it's what are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, both. I think it's a business story. I think you might have sent me something around this. It rings a bell. And I probably didn't use it for all the reasons above. Landed at the wrong time, etc. But yeah, that's really interesting. I'm really interested in the whole, businesses being involved in sustainability for the right way. The money going into sustainability, the money going into a low carbon economy, transition economy, etc. Anything like that is going to get my attention more than run-of-the-mill business stories. And I think my readers like that as well. That's an interesting point about whether stories are just business stories or general news stories. The only way to find out is to send it to a general news reporter and see whether they pick it up, or ring the news desk of the paid organisation, whatever. We've been talking mainly about kind of business news here and a little bit about newspapers, but it's radio, TV, which we can maybe mention, and they're always on the lookout for great stories. And a TV story is, you get massive coverage on TV just by ringing up or contacting a journalist on a local TV station. And if it's something with moving images that's going to look good, I always joke like BBC local news always like robots. So if you're doing anything around robotics, they're always up at Bristol Robotics Lab taking pictures of robots, because everybody likes little robots that walk around and talk. So regardless of the story, basically, it's a kind of Bristol is a centre for robotics, therefore let's go and take some pictures of little robots just going around on the floor, or robots fighting each other or something, kind of robot wars type thing. It's
But Anne-Marie, you've got big numbers there, and I personally think, without being too geeky about it, the story about how pension funds are being invested in things that will deliver good for the region, and sort of touches on a number of important points that are very newsworthy. It definitely sort of something to sort of think about.
Come back to me on that. I'm really interested in that. I think I said at the beginning, it's kind of use of technology, use of what we've got in the city for to make things better in the city, social inclusion, diversity, etc. Really, really interested in that sustainability, technology for good. And Bristol is kind of a leading centre for that kind of thing, forward-thinking businesses, forward-thinking individuals, hopefully.
So we're going to move on to sort of something that has happened recently, but it was a big story in the calendar, and I think it sort of illustrates perhaps the challenges sort of facing people who are looking to place stories with you, but also an opportunity to get their organisations placed. I'm talking about the budget that happened week ago, week before last, big
Yeah.
story in the news calendar. I always remember it being a really busy day in the newsroom. You know, you had lots of journalists writing different things, reactions, case studies, what is coming out of, the government on that day, and humanizing and localizing the response to that. What's Budget Day for you like as a regional journalist? And what do people on this call need to think about if they've got stories to send you at this time, whether they're related to the budget or not?
Yeah. Okay. If you've got a non-budget story, don't send it out on Budget Day, because every single business journalist in the land will be up to their ears in budget stuff. And believe it or not, I was getting press releases during the budget speech from people who send me stuff with nothing to do with the budget, which is but crazy, because you know every business journalist is going to be involved in the budget. So what, plus my inbox gets clogged up with budget stuff anyway, so I'm probably not going to, your press release probably isn't going to land in the right way. I probably got it opened anyway. So putting that to one side, Budget Day, very, very busy. What I'm looking for, go back when I was on newspaper, it was incredibly busy day, stressful. But we used to plan a lot in advance. Like, we know KPMG are going to come over with talk about personal tax for us, and we knew that PwC, for example, are going to talk about something else. So we kind of had people primed, we had the experts primed, so everything was done. A lot of it was done in advance, apart from obviously what was in the budget itself. So we kind of, and as you said, like, someone who write about personal finance would have their contacts lined up or ready to speak to, or they would send out stuff. So in terms of reaction, we all knew, they announced the budget a couple of months before it takes place. So if you're in an organization where you think you'd be able to add value, and that's an important phrase, add value to a journalist coverage of the budget, contact the journalist beforehand, drop them an email saying, we'll be sending out, just to let you know, we'll be sending out a response from the budget. We hope to get it to you by 4 p.m. on Budget Day, or 3:30 p.m. or something like that. And it will come from our, chief accountant or something, chief financial officer, or, who's an expert. Maybe even validate, but say, he's one of the leading people in their field. The journalists would go, great, because journalists love experts. We should maybe mention that before. Journalists love it. Someone who's an expert, and that validates the story, and also validates the journalist coverage as well, the journalist reporting, because he's like, this is coming from the top tax accountant in the country, award-winning tax accountant or whatever. And then deliver it. Don't deliver it at 6 o'clock when you said to tell the journalist, you're going to do it at 4. So. And be controversial and say something that other people aren't coming. A lot of the stuff I get on the budget, things like that, are just telling me what was in the budget. I know what was in the budget. I want an expert to tell me whether it was good or bad, what they think of it. I want an expert to say the budget, this was the worst budget ever, or this is the best budget ever. And they're going to get, they're going to get the coverage, not the person who goes, budget contained a 1p cut in national insurance, and and also what journalists really like is someone to kind of pick up the thing that everyone missed in the budget, which is kind of, I'm not talking about the big figures. I'm talking about maybe the little things in there, like, there's some help for the creative sector in the budget. I think a little bit of help for the creative sector, and for a city like Bristol, that's quite important. Could be important. So to have someone say the help for the creative sector was good but not enough, or it was fantastic, it was what we asked for. It's one of the days in the year where a journalist is on the receiving end of loads and loads of stuff, most of it not any good. So really good. When it's good, it does my job for me. There's nothing a journalist likes more than, as I said, a kind of an expert on tap who's going to send you something that will make your story or be an important part of the story, because then the journalist can go home early.
So looking at the sort of the names that are on this call, and trying to sort of make this relevant to them, and how we sort of think about these things. The thing I would say about the budget is, I'm more this year than any other year I can recall in the 20 years I've been doing this job. It was so heavily trailed, there were no surprises in there at all.
Exactly.
You know what's going to be in it. Therefore, you can, as an organization, you can prepare your response, check against delivery, and then your response is ready to go out at that time.
Yeah.
For people who are on this,
you can have your comment lined up in advance, almost written, and as you said, as soon as they announce it. And I did get, I was getting stuff coming in within minutes of the budget finishing, which is fine if you're kind of doing. And a lot of people do a kind of rolling news type approach to it. It's immediate responses from within 5 minutes from XYZ accountants who say this is a terrible budget. And it's going to hit families by £1,000 a year, or this is a great budget. It's going to put £2,000 in everybody's pocket or something like that. That's what a journalist wants. They want the headline stuff, and me as a business journalist wants the personal finance stuff is interesting, but is there anything in there for business as well? Tinkering with capital gains tax or corporation tax, all this kind of stuff.
What does it mean for things?
Get it in straight away, on the same day if possible. Maybe then again, find who you're targeting your publication. But with 24-hour rolling news and online news, don't send it. I think I told you the other day, Ben, I got a press release in like 5 days after the budget saying here's our budget response, when that was even the following week. It was on the Monday the following week when no one was really, you can get it into the weekend. The budget's on a Wednesday. The coverage will maybe continue into the weekend, but that tends to be more political coverage in terms of the impact of what it's had on, standing in opinion polls. Is it going to be a general election, whatever? So the Sunday papers will pick up a bit of the budget coverage in terms of response and reaction. But to have someone send in a press release, and I think I mentioned to you as well, I think it was the same day, because International Women's Day was on the Friday, and someone sent me some stuff on the Monday after International Women's Day was on the Friday, saying would I like to interview some of their female employees for International Women's Day, which was 4 days previously. It's kind of, So this kind of timing is really important. Understand the news agenda, and if you're in a sector, you should know everything that's going on in your sector, including things that are coming out. And I often say this to the little companies here, a lot of them are involved in technology. But if the technology is like in the education sector, everyone's talking about education when the GCSE results come out, when the A-level results come out, those kind of things. Or if there's a white paper, the government are doing a white paper on education, junior education, primary education or something. Think about whether you can be involved in that, whether you've got a response. Journalists will be interested, and get it in advance if you can. And that's when things like radio and TV are important, because, you watch, you watch these listen to these bulletins, watch these bulletins, and they have an expert, here to talk us through what's going on is an expert. As I said, journalists like expert. TV, radio, love experts. Position yourself as an expert, genuine expert, and you make for life.
Absolutely.
Be available. Sorry, I'd say be available. When I worked in PR, we did a lot on skills training and that kind of stuff, and we used to get people on at the 7 o'clock morning radio show talk about skills and that kind of thing. It's not the most important thing in the world that people want to talk about, but the government have produced a white paper on skills training, or there's been a report's come out about not enough kids going to university, or too many kids going to university, whatever it was, and live in the studio, live on down the line, we've got this person from a local skills organisation who's going to talk about that. So be kind of, try and be ahead of the media curve, not just understand the media curve, be ahead of it. And the journalists will love that. And you probably get invited back every time there's something about skills or education. Oh, who's that person we had who talked really well about skills and knew what they were talking about, and was available at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, and that's free. That's free publicity for your organisation. You can't buy that. Literally, you can't. This is on the BBC. You can't buy it. You can't even buy advertising on the BBC. Well, not at the moment. I'm sure you will.
I'll come on to the BBC.
People go, oh yeah, I saw you on radio, I saw you on TV, or I heard you on the radio, talking about skills. And all your rivals will go, how did they do that? Well, it's not rocket science.
Thank you. So we've got time for one more question, I would say, before we sort of sum up. And there are a couple of points, we've covered a lot of ground, so there's a couple of points that, sort of like to make before we finish off. Taking all of this on board, Rob, we've talked about sort of timing, we've talked about sort of availability. Is there one or two key things you'd recommend to people on this webinar who'd like to share news with you? or any other business title for that matter.
Yeah.
If there's one thing they could take away from this call, what would it be?
It's free publicity for your organization if you get it right. And try to work with the journalists. Journalists aren't the enemy. It's kind of a lot of PR people, and I've heard this from PR people. It's kind of we hate journalists. We don't like journalists. Journalists say the same about some PR people. But it's kind of it's not a kind of it's not a boxing match or a wrestling match. As I said, it's kind of when it works really well, it's a symbiotic relationship. If that's the right word. It can work really well. It can take a load off. I get press releases in from PR firms that I know, and when I see them, I know this story is going to be relevant, accurate. It's going to have most of the facts in it. I do have to do a bit of checking myself and maybe a rewrite, right, to put it into my style. And that's another thing. I mean, newspapers, journalists have different styles, so don't try to write in the style of that's why I say kind of use basic language. And we didn't talk about jargon, did we? Maybe I could quickly mention that. Don't use jargon that your sector uses, kind of do a lot on technology, but I'm not a technology journalist, so I don't understand technology. And anyway, my readers aren't necessarily, not all of them are involved in technology. You've got to write to someone who knows absolutely nothing about, assume they know nothing about your company and nothing about the technology you're producing, if it's something to do with technology. And that's when kind of, keep it basic, put the notes to editors at the bottom, explain who the company is, I get press releases from companies that don't even tell me where they're based. That wastes my time. This is a really good story. This company's just got £5 million investment, and they're going to use it to double capacity of this world-leading technology there. And it doesn't tell me where they're based. So then go online and find the company, and it's based in, Reading, Ruislip, anywhere, but round here.
Yeah.
And those people have just wasted 5 minutes of my time, which I could have spent 5 minutes working on something else.
So on the point of jargon, I'm sure there are, I know there are some comms people on the call, actually, and I'm sure people have been involved in sort of discussions internally about how language that you use and how you present things. I would always say, unless the people you're writing for can understand it, then try and find a different way to say it. But and certainly with tech and construction, which we work in as well, and placemaking, you're not dumbing it down by not including the jargon. You are opening it up. You're opening it up to people to help you to sort of understand it. So it's a really important point, and certainly something that we strive for.
You explain later, further down the press release, but kind of, the first few paragraphs have got to be available to read, be understood by someone not involved in the industry. They can always explain further down. I said, or in the notes to editors, or even to put the attached note, or write two versions if you're kind of worried that you're going to send the press release, which is dumbed down in inverted commas, to a technology journalist. Send them a different version, or put a covering note on it saying, we've written this for general release.
Absolutely.
Or put a separate Q&A or something, or down the bottom, and kind of explain a bit more what's going on, So journalists love information, but they need it there and then. A lot of journalists aren't going to come back to you and say, I really like your press release, can you send me some more information? Because I've got another 99 press releases to open.
Yeah.
And as another press release, and it could be a press release, which is great. I'm going to put that to one side because that will form part of a bigger feature I'm doing. So sometimes a journalist not using your press release isn't because they don't like it, because it's badly written. It could be part of a bigger feature.
So we've got about 10 minutes. I think we've covered most of the questions on here. There's one I will come back to, but we've covered the points that I wanted to sort of cover. I just want to, before sort of closing and summing up, I just want to sort of come to some final points about why this matters, really, why news matters, which I think sort of speaks to a couple of questions, and where it fits into the wider comms mix too. So this isn't death by PowerPoint, right? But I'm just going to bring up a couple of things. And this is, if you can see this, these are very recent research that's done by Ofcom, which is the media regulator, about news consumption in the media. Where are people getting their news from? I think the thing that's a bit weird about this slide actually is that online, social media, newspapers, television, there's all an online element to that. There's crossover, but what I think the key point here is that people are consuming news in different ways. Press release can work for all of them, but you need to think about how your content mix. So images, interviews, data, all of those things can help. And then just some headlines from this research and a link to the Ofcom report. There is an appetite for news. Almost all adults are consuming it in some way or another. And more than 2/3 of those are consuming it online, through websites like Rob's, with broadcast also being a pretty well used channel. In terms of where local news fits into this, more adults say they access news from local websites or apps than they do from titles like The Sun, The Telegraph, and other national titles too. And trust in these platforms is higher than it is on social media. So whilst the point about free publicity is entirely fair, I think when you're dealing with the media, and you're trying to engage sort of audiences, maybe in your product, in your service, or in your business, then media coverage is still a really trusted way to do that. And we're quite lucky in this. We're fortunate, not lucky. We're fortunate in the Southwest to have quite a vibrant, diverse media mix. It's a tough time for the media, but we have lots of different titles covering lots of different stories every day, and they all deserve our support. They're doing great work. So those are just some thoughts which I will close that down now. I'll remove those slides. If anyone wants more detail on that, then I'm happy to share it with you. And just to sum up, really, I mean, we've covered a lot in the last sort of hour or so.
We could have gone for hours.
Yeah, my takeaways is that there are opportunities to land coverage. Different titles in different places cover different things. So spend a bit of time researching those titles and thinking about what it is they will be. You try to see it through their lens, and remember you're competing with lots of other announcements. So make what you're saying interesting. We've talked about timing. Timing is everything. It's really important. If something is happening today and you want to respond to it, it needs to go out on that day.
Or in advance.
And in advance, and be available. Be available. It's that opportunity to build relationships beyond a press release. You might not see value in it immediately, but over time, if you are sort of seen as sort of a reliable, sort of credible source of information, then that pays dividends over time. So if anyone wants further comms tips on media and storytelling, please visit the resources section on our website and stay across our newsletter, and there'll be a link sort of coming up in the field now. So you hopefully see that link at the bottom of the screen. That contains lots of information. We're building on this all the time. So if you think there are things missing that we haven't covered today, then please let us know and we'll provide some resource on that. And at 5 to 12, it only leaves me to sort of thank you, Rob, for your insights.
One takeaway, I guess, is don't try to bend the truth. Don't lie to a journalist, because I've got a long memory, and I know the PR people who've tried to spin stories that haven't been true, or they're half true, or journalists don't like that. That's where a lot of the kind of the opposition in journalism circles to PR people come from. That you get told something is. I remember doing a story once. So this company told us that their technology was world beating or world leading or something, which is a phrase gets used a lot, I must admit. And it went in the paper, and then following day we get a phone call from someone saying we produce something exactly the same. It's not world leading. Journalists have been sued, or their newspapers have been sued for something like that. So be careful. You've got to be able to back these things up, and that's what I was saying earlier. It's kind
Absolutely.
of think, oh well, we twist the truth a little bit, then the journalists are going to use it more because maybe the journalists will use it, but they won't forgive you if you get found out. And why? Why should I trust what a PR person says in their next press release and their next phone call, their next whatever, if they've twisted the truth or lied to me?
It's all good points.
My reputation as well that's on the line, kind of, it's, as I was saying earlier, kind of people send me duff information or information, I don't want to be writing a story which is wrong or incorrect or half a story. And a lot of press releases get half a story,
Yeah. So make it credible as well.
Credible, factual, validated, in context.
Yeah.
So you won the award the year before, so you won it 2 years in a row. Kind of. On awards, what I get approached a lot by people saying, "Do you? Can I send you a press release about some awards?" Well, depends what they are. If they're if the industry, if they're kind of the Oscars, in inverted of the industry, and you've won. Then yeah, but if it's a kind of I don't know. It's a tough one, awards, because everybody, most companies enter awards. So is that a story? I don't know. If you win law firm of the year, if you win, kind of as I said, tax accountant of the year, 5 years running, you are the best tax accountant in the country. But,
it's absolutely. Thank you to everyone for taking part. Thanks again, Rob, and thanks to those who've joined us. It wouldn't have been much of a session without you. If any of you are, I know we've got some comms people on the call actually. If any of you are members of the CIPR, I'm advised that you can put in a custom submission for CPD points. So just let me know if that would be helpful if you're doing CPD. I hope you found today useful. We look forward to sort of catching up with you for future sessions. And hope it's been helpful. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's helpful. That's great. If it hasn't been, blame Ben. So
thanks a lot, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.